Welcome to another episode of The Vet, and the Casual. We are coming off a nice UFC 254 card. That was an enjoyable one. Obviously, respect all goes out to Khabib. Just a good human being, let alone the domination in the ring, but just how he carries himself, a family man. Yeah. All of that was beautiful to see. Guys like this just don't come around that often. You see clips of him kind of wrestling bears, jumping into freezing cold rivers and swimming upstream. Like, the commitment to the craft combined with the humility of being a good person, a family man. Yeah, we're gonna miss you for sure. That's no doubt about it. How'd you feel about that card, Siraj?
Yeah, I think that you said it really perfectly about what we're gonna miss about him, and it's always the good ones. That's kind of my biggest takeaway from that night. I think Justin Gaethje, someone who we've been so high on just from the improvement and what he's looked like so far, for Khabib to do the things he's done in that light, the way he dominated him was something that really took me back and was like, wow, you're that level of a champion where realistically, if you kept going, it would have been almost boring. George St. Pierre level, but not as boring, but on that level. And I think it would have been something beautiful to watch. But like I said, it's always the good ones. And kudos to Justin Gaethje. I got a story for you. So yesterday on the DC and Helwani show, peep this. Justin Gaethje, when he was getting finished there, he was originally in an armbar, if you remember. There was a switch. DC was saying how Khabib sent him a text message, and he actually shows Ariel on air, and it basically was, so he knew that Gaethje's family was in the audience, and so he switched from the armbar to the triangle. So instead of because he knew this guy wasn't going to tap, he even said it in previews, and that's what Khabib said. He remembers this guy saying that, so there's just no way he was going to break his arm in front of his family. So he switched it up and put him in a triangle instead to choke him out, put him to sleep. He can wake up and go home to his family happy.
Man, I legit have chills,
Yeah, there was an interview that Ariel Helwani put up that I'm actually going to show you later, just to show I'm just going to miss him so much. He was such a funny guy. You know this. He's just the best. I mean, that interview was one of the best ever, and it's going to be memorable. And it just got put up, and I'm going to have to send that to you.
And I'm glad to see him finish the way that he did. His image was slightly tainted after that McGregor fight with all the extracurriculars that happened and stuff like that. But that's not who this man is. And so it was nice to see him go out on a note that reflects him as a person a little bit more. In terms of that card, man, we absolutely smashed that card. I know you hit a nice juicy 10, 11 team parlay. We're going to count 11 because I'm pretty sure Da Un-jung won that.
I mean, lucky for that void, we went a little crazy. I mean, I think both of us got very lucky with that void. And I mean, yeah, we had a couple 10 teams. We had a couple 8 teams. It was a fun evening. And, we're looking forward to doing it again.
Yeah, so let's jump right into it.
Let's do it, baby.
This card is not going to be as highly touted, but for me personally, I'm very excited about it. My favorite fighter of all time is Anderson Silva. Just a very entertaining person in general. So I'm pretty excited about it. I know we're not getting prime Anderson Silva, but hopefully that entertainment factor will still be there.
I mean, maybe we do have to graduate this guy from Casual. My word. Favorite fighter, Anderson Silva. How many years you been into this, bro?
Yo, he's 45 now, man. I got years of tape on this guy. So, kicking us off today is an American bout, Miles Johns versus Kevin Notvadod. So, give us a little information about this one.
Yeah, so Notvadod's making his UFC debut. I actually really like Johns in this fight, and in my opinion, he's being sold a little low. He's a 10-1 fighter. That one loss is to a guy by the name of Mario Bautista, who's also 10-1, and his only loss is to Quote Sandhagen. And the best part for me with Johns is I actually really enjoyed the grappling that I saw against Cole Smith. There was a moment in the fight where Cole Smith just had his back the whole time and was locking up triangles and was just switching him up. But the reason he had to switch him up is because, Johns kept rolling to the right side. And for me, when I see things like that, I'm just seeing a technical aspect, a mental aspect to the game that is just at a little bit of a higher level than you would say an average fighter having. And with this guy still being 9-1, it's still an LFC veteran. Is that the same as a UFC veteran? I mean, I can't put them in the same bracket. And so his record is respectable without question, but Miles John is basically ranked level skill. This is going to be a very tough fight for him. And I mean, I'm sure you might have a point on this based on some of the research you've done, but I just
kind of going off of what you were just saying there, like his slippery notion. It reminds me a little bit of that Guram fight where he would get taken down into a little bit more of vulnerable positions, but he would get away from them. He was so smart that he actually never opened himself up to any vulnerability. So, hopefully we kind of see that with Johns. What are you kind of expecting in terms of odds here?
I mean, quick shout out. This man brought up a Georgian fighter. Does he love the Georgian fighters more than me or what? And my girl, Liana Jojua, poor girl. I hope the nose is okay. We really miss you. And it was an absolute wonderful fight. I wish they kept it going, but good luck to you.
Yeah, I would have loved to see more of that.
We would have. We really hope to see you soon. So going on, I mean, looking at the odds for this fight, I mean, we pretty much touched on both fighters. I think Johns is just the more skilled fighter, better trained fighter overall. So I'm looking at a guy who should be, between minus 250 to even minus 300 in this fight.
Yeah, and that's kind of what I expected based on your analysis. Actually looking at it, I mean, we might actually get some decent value on Johns because he's about a minus 200 favorite. So, that's definitely a great parlay builder for us.
I love those odds. I mean, knowing us and knowing the UFC, I mean, we better jump on that ASAP because we know that's going to move. Last week was a prime example of where some of our, lines were, our boy Rakhmonov, let's talk about that. One of the juiciest lines over the course of the week and was fluctuating more than any other line on that card. And we loved him. And there it was. We took him. It was.
There was actually quite a few that, from the time that we actually spoke about it to the time we went to go lay on Saturday, the lines had moved quite a bit. So,
cool.
Stay tuned for that one. But, Johns might be one that we kind of lay early here.
I love
given that minus 200.
Beautiful.
Moving on to the next fight. It's a nice women's bout here. So we got the, as a chef, I know you're going to appreciate this nickname, but Courtney Cast Iron Casey versus Priscila Kattar, the zombie girl. So give us a little more on this one.
Yeah, so I mean, Courtney Casey, you should be a little familiar with her because we've seen her fight a couple times now over the course of the last little bit. And, our girl Jillian Robertson, shout out Canadian sister, what, beat her. And that's where she's now looking really good on the win streak she's on. But, grappling-wise, Jillian Robertson was obviously a bit better than her. But I think Courtney Casey has what it takes to kind of win this fight. I mean, when you look at what Kattar brings to the table, she's got really good defense to kind of, avoid certain submissions and things like that. But she's definitely zombie girl, pushing forward.
She actually lives up to that nickname.
Lives up, man. Like when I was watching some tape, I just felt like she constantly pushes forward. I like the energy, but I do believe that Courtney Casey should be kind of more of the athlete, more of the MMA technician. And in this fight, if she can keep up with the strikes, and avoid the big shots early and kind of really win that early part of the fight and then just make it a bit more of a grappling match and avoid huge bombs, because that's all she's really looking for. And honestly, she's willing to push forward. If you are not able to knock this woman out or send her some signs of power, she's going to keep coming. But I don't believe what I've seen is enough to warrant a favorite. For Courtney Casey, I think she might be on a skid, and based on how we've seen, what have you done for me lately type of odds. I still think from an experience perspective, and with that win over Barella, I just think she's going to have the edge in an odds perspective. And I mean, I don't know if you want to add anything before I jump into some guesses here, but.
Well, actually, my statement will be based on your guess. So what are you thinking here for odds?
Yes, I mean, this girl's only 1-3. Kattar's 1-3 in the UFC. We got Casey coming in at 5-7. I just have to give her that edge for experience and overall skill. So let's take a look at maybe a minus 210, minus 220. I mean, I can't see.
Yeah, you're actually right on cue, and because of that, I was going to ask, what is the level of Zombie Girl's power, knockout power? Is that something to kind of explore here? As she's actually a minus 250 favorite. Courtney Casey is.
I'm going to be completely real with you. If I'm looking at this card right away, and I like to get my action early, a Johns and Casey parlay here might just be a play.
Yeah.
I think Kattar just lacks the technical ability. And we've seen Courtney Casey just fight for way too long. I think Jillian Robertson was just the perfect fight for her from like a challenge perspective, being able to take shots, being able to push in, get the grappling going, and just stick to your glue type jiu-jitsu, It was very tough for Courtney to be able to kind of mount any type of reversal, any type of, offense from the ground. She just didn't have it. And what I saw in there was, unless Kattar brings a, grappling elite game plan to the table here and takes advantage of that similarly to Jillian Robertson, I just don't see it. And based on the name Zombie Girl, I have a feeling she's going to want to strike the whole time.
Yeah, she's going to stick to, her craft. So, yeah, I agree with that. I like the John's parlay with that. So, kind of moving on to the next one, we got another American fight between Dustin Jacoby and El Blanco Justin Ledet.
Yeah, so Dustin Jacoby is actually 0-2 in the UFC, but that's back in 2011, 2012. Wow. He's primarily a kickboxing fighter. He's actually been fighting on the scene, like Glory, things like that, even some side promotions. But he actually came in on Dana White's Contender Series and did very, very well. I think that he looked really good. His striking is very impressive. I mean, the kickboxing trade definitely suits this man. He looked great. I just don't know what kind of skill I would see him fighting moving forward. But then looking at Ledet, kind of got tired towards the third round in his last fight, was looking a little sluggish, but even in the first couple rounds, it was raw. It was raw talent. I could see that you could defend certain positions. I could see that you were able to throw some serious bombs, but I think Jacoby is game to throw shots. And I do think that Jacoby's going to be the better MMA fighter. I think Jacoby's going to be the better technical striker and probably have more power. Like he can cut. He can clip chins. It's just all of that coming into one play. I don't think he's going to be having any type of issues with the striking that Ledet brings to the table. And honestly, when you look at Ledet, who's 3-3 in the UFC, I didn't see much in his wins either. And he's moved up in terms of competition and lost 3 straight. So I really do like Jacoby in this, and I think the odds should show that. Maybe not by much based on experience and recent action, but even a -170 to a -220 for Jacoby makes sense to me.
He's actually -300. So, Vegas is definitely in line with what you're seeing here in terms of this guy just kind of being outmatched here.
Yeah. And the thing is, even with Jacoby, he was really disappointed with his cardio in his Dana White Contender Series fight. So that's what makes me excited. When you see a guy who notices a problem like that and is going to try and fix it, I think he's been around long enough to be able to see that right away. I think fighting in the UFC, if you're younger, if it's your first time, building that type of gas tank, especially when it's in the UFC Octagon, I think there's an added edge where it's just hard to build that up. A lot of fighters who even are champions now struggle that when they're younger. But Jacoby might be able to do that, especially in this Ledet fight. So I love that.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's at least 50 points built into the fact that this man has a terrible haircut. So, all right. So up next, we got, this past weekend, we saw the Killer Gorilla fight, against Whitaker. This week, we got the Vanilla Gorilla in Jason Witt versus Cole Williams. So
let's touch on a more interesting fight. Hey, Whitaker, can we talk about that for a quick second? Jared Cannonier wasn't really up to the challenge. We hit Whitaker, baby boy. Let's go.
Last leg on the parlay.
Let's get it, baby. So the thing I don't like about Williams, he's 0-1 in the UFC. He puts his hands down. He was kind of out of shape the last fight. I'm not a big fan of those kinds of things, especially if you're not proving it. Like if you're a Gastelum and you can show me you can wrestle when you're out of shape, that's perfect for me. I'm okay with that. But 11-2 overall. He looked like he was really. I watched some regional clips of him, and he did look very technical, very sound early on in his career. But I just didn't see that in the last fight. The thing I like about Witt is he's a journeyman, 17-6, but 0-1 in the UFC. Got knocked up at Takashi Saito. Better striker won. It is what it is. I think that can happen to anyone in this game. So when I'm looking at it from a MMA skill, from a overall, what do you bring to the table now? I just don't think I see enough from Williams recently where I think this might be a holy shit, I get a chance in the UFC. Let me see if I can make it happen. I mean, he could prove me wrong here. And I'm hoping that the odds are probably a lot closer than maybe some of the last fights we talked about, just because you have a little bit of that, unpredictability. Yeah, uncertainty is a great word. That you just don't know. And so I'm going to say Witt's the favorite here just based on overall experience and just overall journeyman. I like when guys like that get a chance, especially in this new UFC where everyone kind of gets their Disney World opportunity. So I want to see maybe like a -150 to a -200 favorite here.
You honestly nailed it. He's -145. I think your breakdown of the fight was perfect. There's a lot of good value here on just being able to take Witt straight here. So stay tuned for the Vanilla Gorilla, but I think we'll be jumping on that one.
And maybe with that one, we actually take a look at the weigh-ins, because really with Williams, what I saw in that last fight, man, that was like a guy who must have been drinking, got called up, you know what I mean? Came in like, whatever, here we go. So, but yeah, we like that.
Stay
play,
tuned for that one. Check
For
out
sure.
the weigh-ins. Yeah, we'll lock in that one a little closer too. So up next, I love these guys' nicknames. I hope they live up to it, but it's Tarzan versus Hammer. I know you're super excited about Sean Strickland. This is your boy.
Yeah. So, I mean, this guy was a UFC prospect back like 2015, 2016, and that's why I really like this guy. Funny enough, Tarzan, kid has a shaved head now. I'm calling him a
I
kid.
know. I'm like, yo, this man better do some shit in the ring because he does not look like Tarzan.
And that's where I think we're going to see him, right? Motorcycle accident. That's why we haven't seen him fight for a while. Unfortunately, that's kept him out for a while. He's even gone on interviews and talked about his injuries, torn pectoral, all these kinds of things. But he's surrounding himself with really good fighters right now. I think he's jumping from camp to camp. He's trying to see what he can put together. He's decided who's going to be in his corner right now. So it's not like he's all over the place. I think he's just trying to see how much more he can learn as he tries to ramp up his MMA training and his UFC career again. So
he has a phenomenal record.
Yeah, and so that's the big thing about this guy. So we're talking about losses against guys like Ponzinibbio, Kamaru Usman, and your boy Zaleski.
Oh man.
Well, here's my favorite part about this fight. Doesn't have to cut weight anymore. He hated cutting weight at welterweight. Now he gets to fight at 185. So, welterweight, young, anything goes. Sean Strickland, who's cutting weight like crazy, or bug knee, torn pectoral, doesn't have to cut weight. Sean Strickland. I think he's going to still be technically sound. I think Jack Marshman is a one-dimensional fighter. So even the way I think Strickland breaks this fight down is he knows he's better than him, and it's unfortunate to say it that way, but he himself has said it. There's an interview with him. He knows that he's going to probably try to trade with him for the fun of it. Now, if I'm Sean Strickland, you have to be very aware of what you get yourself into, right?
Yeah.
Don't be dancing for too long. That's my big fear there. So
yeah, absolutely.
Classic setup here. We got a guy making a comeback. We got an old school fighter really willing to just trade blows. What do you think's going to pop off here?
Yeah, I'm going to take the technical aspect all day.
Even with those injuries.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you're aware of those injuries, you know
right.
what I mean? And so you're going to try and play this out to your strengths. And if you have more tools in your arsenal to try and get you further in the bout, I'm going to take that route over somebody who's literally just trying to knock you out.
So with that mentality in mind, very similar thought process there that I would say, and even with those injuries, I think that technical side is just going to be so much higher, where I'm kind of visualizing, with everything said, a minus 180 to a minus 240 type of favorite, but I wouldn't be surprised if it's higher, and I'd be shocked if it's lower.
It is actually a little higher. It's about minus 265.
Wow.
Yeah, and clearly, Vegas sees the same thing that you do, just kind of one-dimensional. How is this man really going to pull off this win?
I'm not going to lie to you, Pies. We're probably laying that immediately.
All right. Thanks for broadcasting that.
I'm going to say Miles John and a Sean Strickland parlay right now is something that, Mr. The Casual and the Bet might want to consider.
Oh, man, you're telling me that already. I'm getting that at plus money. Give it to me now, man.
Let's go.
All right, so up next, we have somebody who coins himself the Great. Alexander the Great Hernandez versus Chris Grutzmeyer.
Yeah, so the one thing I like about this fight is Anthony Hernandez is such a good prospect. I think he's been thrown to the wolves a little bit, but at his will. He's the kind of guy that wants to take on the best fighters. So I saw him fight Cerrone, and I wanted him to lose because he kept beating Cerrone. He kept trying to be that guy. Everyone. He's from that generation that Conor McGregor started. Everybody wants a paycheck now. Everybody wants to be somebody, so everybody's going to start peaking. Now, I know you love Cowboy, so I just want you to visualize this young kid trying to peak out Cowboy in a presser.
Yeah.
And I almost want to pull that up one day to show you, but it's one of those things where Cowboy just kind of being like, yeah, we'll see, kid, and, well, we suck. Yeah, it was a very humbling experience, but 2 losses in the UFC. Drew Dauber, Justin Gaethje's main training partner. These are tough losses.
Yeah,
so I think
credible losses for sure.
Very credible. So even for his age, I think there's a couple things that I don't like about his game. He's a very muscular fighter. I think he comes in, having to cut weight and then having to, carry that all fight. I think it's maybe his biggest downfall because he's got such great footwork and he likes to use his hands. But you can't keep your hands up if you're exhausted from throwing so many bombs and moving around so much and maybe trying to get submissions and takedowns. You're doing too much and not conserving energy where how do you expect to be a champion if by the third round you're kind of, really dead and really looking for what your skill can bring you? But if you don't have the energy to do things at close to, 70, 80% at least, just to kind of like get through the round, you're gonna kind of falter. And the worst part about it is, what have you done for me lately, as usual, right? Your judges are gonna see the last round, and it's gonna play heavily. Maybe there's some judge who's on his phone still and forgot to, maybe mark the last round, and randomly just like, oh shit, maybe he did that. And they do that. They go that route.
And so do you feel that Grutzmacher has kind of more arsenal or more tools in his arsenal, or more endurance to kind of get there?
Funny you should say that. I think that's the only thing he really brings to the table. And why I have a soft corner for Grutzmacher, because he's from that really popular Conor McGregor, Uriah Faber tough season. I don't know if you saw any clips of that, but it's where Artem Lobov got so popular. And unfortunately, that is the man to make the biggest profit off of Conor McGregor's success. And you got to applaud the man. I don't think he's ever had a winning record in the UFC, but we can double check that. But he's been like 11-11 a lot of the times. Like he's like that 50-50 style fighter. But in cards, he fought on top. He's got a pretty good paycheck out of it all. But now he's fighting bare knuckle boxing and that kind of stuff. So moving on, Grutzmacher was on that show. He was that old school guy who he seemed like he had to be there. He not like, I don't know how I want to say it. It's almost like he felt like he was the guy that was the one deserving person to be there. Like no one deserved it more than him. And so I think that kind of turned me off a little bit moving forward from him, because I don't like people with that attitude, especially, I loved making the call. And if there was a reason for it, there was a reason for it, to be honest.
Yeah. We trust in Dana. So.
Yeah, at this point, we trust in Dana. So that's my biggest concern. Third round, I really think if Hernandez gets that tired, you got to watch out. This guy's got the energy. He's going to try to jump on your back. He's going to try to, box you out a little bit, try to get you more tired, take you to the ground, grind you out. He's that kind of fighter. He's old school. He's willing to take 10-9, 10-9, 10-9 to a win. That's his MO, And again, that's what we don't like as fighting fans. If I'm even a grappling fan, I just don't think he's bringing that exciting style of grappling. I think he's going to try to pin you down, land 4 shots.
Hold you, tire you out. Not what we're looking for.
And I think
so in terms,
go ahead.
So in terms of odds, what are you kind of expecting here?
Yeah, so I think Hernandez has to warrant, that minus 250 to 300 favorite. I don't think there could be anything less than that, and it could definitely be more. Yeah,
it is slightly more, not too much off of what you were kind of saying, but minus 335.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, interesting. We're seeing a lot of interesting lines, Pies, based on last week and this week. It
seems like there might be a bit of an overcorrection. You know what I mean?
Someone's got to lose. Who's going to lose? Of all these favorites, we got to nail down. Someone's got to lose. Well, last week, by the looks of it, most of the favorites did win. So let's see.
And Vegas wasn't happy about that. So
100%. And they kept trying to change the lines to make us, figure out what to do with that.
Yeah. So up next we got another American fight. We got 4 or 5 just Americans going on each other here. But we got Adrian Ynez here versus Victor Rodriguez.
Yeah, and so you know what? I really like these guys. And Pies, this is like your old school prelim type fight, right? And they bring 2 types of fighters to the table. Ynez is that flashy style striker. The type that's going to stand back and look at you and kind of like just jab you like that. Yeah, so he's that kind of type. And the way he looked on Dana White's Contender Series, that's the type of reflection he left for everybody. Everybody was looking at that and just being like, what in the hell just happened? It was a really good, clean strike. He could have followed up. Ref said no. Ended that very early. We bet on that. Now looking at this card, and what makes me really excited, like going into Rodriguez now, he's making his UFC debut. It's on short notice as of October 20th. But the guy's from Alaska, and he just won the Bantamweight Championship in AFC. So he's kind of riding a bit of a high. I just, flashy fighter, old school. Like the way I see it is if the flashy fighter can get tired or gas out or anything in the third round, these are not the kind of guys you want to fight, right? Because these are the kind of guys that seem to pour it on you. The ones that seem to not get tired, just that old school, just balls to the wall, everything that can throw at you. But
especially when you factor in a lack of preparation as well, right?
Mm-hmm. And that's where I think the start of the fight's really going to dictate things, right? Is this guy going to go balls to the wall because he knows his cardio is going to be trash in the later fights because he didn't really have full camps? Or is he really training consistently now, after becoming the champion in Alaska, to just come in and kind of do his thing. From what I saw, my biggest fear would be the grind out in the third round. But I just think that Ynez brings enough to the table, especially from the technical striking. I think this fight could end in the second round. I think he's tired. I don't think Ynez is going to feel enough of a pressure to defend himself, to get tired. I think he's going to be able to, get the finish. He seems to have that, little guy power that we seem to love now with all these smaller weight classes having so many more finishes. He seems to have that skill. And I think in this fight specifically, with the way Rodriguez fights, it's just going to work to his advantage, especially on short notice.
And definitely opens up the opportunity for him to actually finish the fight. So, those might be some odds that we look at as well. What are you thinking about for the main fight?
Well, I think you got to give, Ynez is riding such an impressive public streak. You know what I mean? Everyone now knows about the kind of knockouts that he's able to put together. So I'm seeing something like minus 250, minus 300. I don't think it can be more than that, but it could definitely be less.
So it's actually at about a minus 335.
Oh, wow. So it is
pretty heavy favorite. Yeah, so they're kind of thinking the same thing here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I mean, I think we're gonna look at these finish odds and we're gonna see not plus money, if you know what I mean. I think there's gonna be some pretty good juice there to maybe go to decision.
Yeah, absolutely. Perfect, and that takes us into the main card. So the first one.
I added that to the mix. I don't know. We'll maybe keep that going. I don't know. We'll see.
So the first one we got up is a nice Brazilian man in Thiago Moises. He's fighting the self-proclaimed king in Bobby Greene. This looks like it's going to be a nice, some nice haymakers thrown here. So.
Yes, I mean, Bobby Greene's kind of your fan favorite, right? He's such a journeyman, but he's been in the UFC for a while. Like, he's 27-10 overall with the one on the edge. But I mean, he's already 7-5 in the UFC. He's probably having the best 2020 of anybody ever in the UFC right now. I think that streak is just it's showing really good promise for him. But again, he's getting this really tough fight in Moises. I think that 2-2 record doesn't really reflect the skill that we're seeing. This guy, locked up Michael Johnson in an Achilles lock fairly early in the fight. I mean, one of the losses to Beneil Dariush. This is the kind of guy that we want to see succeeded over a longer period of time. And I think some of the finishes, even on the Dana White Contender Series, that's what impresses us. And I think he's riding a lot more momentum. And I think Bobby Greene might have met his match here, and I hope he hasn't, just from that deep down perspective. Like, you want to see Bobby Greene succeed. This could be his time to kind of, that last hurrah, if you will. I think after this win streak, and even if he loses a couple, it's going to be tough to kind of ride that kind of high again, And so I'm hoping that we can get him as the underdog. So Moises has to be something like a minus 190 to a minus 250 even. Unless this win streak is really, 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 taken into consideration, I just think Greene is just too hot to ignore.
I was going to say, it sounds like, the hype train is kind of undervalued in your opinion because, Bobby Greene here is a minus 270 favorite. Mm-hmm. He is a huge, huge favorite here. Mm-hmm. So that hype around him is definitely building.
That's actually good to hear. Now, I mean, that kind of takes us back to Moises, right? I think we need to look at the type of fighter he is. The only way I see Bobby Greene in terms of skills really taking this fight over is he gets so comfortable over the course of a fight. You can see in his last few fights. By the time it gets to the second, third round, we're not seeing Bobby Greene of old kind of just throw strikes and try to get his way out of this. We're seeing Bobby Greene take over fights. I mean, Lando Venata got boxed up, and that's a guy I really, really like out of Jackson Wink. But, I mean, Bobby Greene looked elite in comparison, and that's hard to say, but that's the kind of skill that's putting him, on the map right now. And if you're telling me that he's coming in at minus 270, I mean, it's like I really wanted to bet him as an underdog, but I mean, that just tells me everything that I wanted to bet on him is everyone else as well,
Yeah, Vegas has built that into the line, so not a lot of value there, but if there's anything we end up taking, we'll let you guys know. Mm-hmm. Up next is a fight I know you're very excited about. The NFL outcast that is Greg Hardy.
Yeah,
favorite Maurice Greene.
I mean, here's the thing. I mean, I don't even know what to say about these guys. I don't think I dislike a fighter more than Greg Hardy. It's been a long time. And Maurice Greene, I mean, he's one of those guys where, he was on Tough 28. He looked okay in some of his earlier fights, but I mean, I gotta say, the Gian Vellante fight, I sent you a clip. Can you please pull that up? I'm just gonna.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Please
I'm sorry to depress you by bringing up this fight right now.
Perhaps the referee stands you up.
The clip I'm about to show you is, I mean, if we got the full thing, there's a line that Bisping drops that's just absolutely.
Oh wow.
Yeah, and I mean,
that was quite the submission right there.
Who do you think won?
Incredible! I've never seen
Greene.
Okay, cool. I was wondering if you thought maybe the guy on top won, because are you seeing this man Gian Vellante on top?
Yes.
This man is dead.
How do you get submitted being on top?
Yeah, so I mean, Dominic Cruz tried to explain about like getting the arm locked in under the neck, but I mean, bro, there was a line by Bisping that killed me and my brother-in-law. It was, when you get tired in the traditional sense, and he basically said, when you get tired as a fat guy, not as an athlete. When you get tired as a fat guy,
traditional sense,
it's a bit different on the body. And so what he's basically saying is, this guy has not only moved up in weight so much, like that's talk about a beer belly fighter. Like that dude came in two weight classes too high, and it looked the part. And Maurice snuck away with what could have been a loss in the first 2 rounds, to be honest. And so it was one of the ugliest fights I've ever watched in my life. But that finish was comedic level, and I think it's the most underrated finish that nobody talks about. So,
you don't even see it coming.
No. Lead us into what is this Greg Hardy making, I'm so glad he's at least having to prove himself. I just think a guy like this, if he went on some like 5 to 6 fight run, he's not one of the guys I just want to see getting such a quick title shot. You know what I mean? Like he's just not that guy. If I'm going to see him at least get this opportunity to, second chance at life, I want to see him really earn it. And so, 3-2 in the UFC, 6-2 overall. He's one of those guys that's really made his mark through Dana White contenders, through the UFC. So not much, regional experience. But, I mean, the cardio was a bit of an issue towards the end. Very powerful in the beginning. He doesn't really have much in the arsenal, and I hope he's working on that, right? Like, he tries to throw some leg kicks to switch it up, but tries to set it up for these big bombs. And so this fight is not only boring to analyze, it's disappointing to analyze. It's just like, I want to respect both guys, and I do because they're MMA fighters. But again, if there's a fight on here that I'm just like, may the best man win, it's definitely this one. And
this is going to be the one where you bust out your cast iron and do a little cooking for them. So.
Yeah. After our girl cast iron gets to him, we pull up the cast iron and start cooking with it too.
So what are you thinking for odds here?
I'm going to go with Hardy as the favorite here. And I'm thinking, it shouldn't be more than -180 to -250 because they both have shown tremendous holes in their game. I just have to give him the edge.
315, my friend. 315.
Yeah, that's fair. Let's take the knockout. Let's take the under and just go for a smoke break and come back.
Perfect.
We don't smoke cigarettes.
Moving on, the next fight we got is our boy Kevin Holland fighting Mahmoud Muradov.
All right. So, Kevin Holland, this is one guy, I'm not going to lie, I definitely messaged this man for an interview, and I'm going to keep messaging because there might not be a fighter that I want to talk to more, not as like a fanboy thing, but the guy is a fan of the sport. And I think he brings an interesting take to the table because he's also so confident in himself. So I like to see how he analyzes other fights because these are the kind of guys who are, as they get older, maybe once their UFC career is done, this is the kind of guy I want to see get an opportunity as, one of the desk guys, one of the ringside guys. He could be really funny in that. He's got knowledge. He respects the game. But looking at him as a fighter, I mean, you've seen him fight a few times. I mean, before I get into some technical stuff, like, what do you think about it?
Well, this is one that he kind of took on short notice, right?
Correct.
Yeah, so it's going to be interesting to see how he can kind of be prepared for Mahmoud, But yeah, in terms of fight, I mean, give us a little bit more on this one.
Yeah, so I mean, Krzysztof Jotko was supposed to fight, but he broke his toe. So, I mean, the thing with I follow him pretty heavily. So Holland is usually in camp, but he doesn't stop training. And he has fought quite a bit in 2020 already. Now, the big thing is, Joaquin Buckley is the knockout of the year everybody's talking about, right? Against Ipaka Sanganaya. But if you think about his previous, in Kevin Holland's fight, I mean, he got decked out real good by Kevin. Kevin was the more technical striker. Kevin made sure to tire him out, beat him up with kicks, beat the body up. And, by the later rounds of the fight, it was just too much for him to handle. And that's what I really love about Kevin is he might act like the kind of guy that doesn't put a lot of, brain behind the brawn. But trust me when I tell you, listening to him talk, listening to him analyze the fights, just he really does love this sport. And I think that shows in his fights. I don't think there's a more entertaining fighter for me in the UFC right now. And I'm talking inside the octagon, outside the octagon. He is fun to watch.
Overall persona.
Yeah, and a lot of people don't like that, right? People don't like the guy that's friendly in the octagon. People want to see two guys rip each other's heads off. But my favorite part of this whole goddamn thing is two guys going in there, technically speaking, beating the shit out of each other and hogging the shit out of each other after. Yeah. It's such a martial artist thing that you're missing from the general persona of the sport, you see the blood and all that stuff, but there is that mutual respect. And Kevin Holland,
it's a sport. Yeah, it's a sport at the end of the day, and these guys have a true love and appreciation for the sport, and a true love and respect for each other. So you're right. I kind of can appreciate that, and what you're saying, given his experience, his history. All of that should help coincide the fact that he had to take this on short notice.
But here's the thing now. So, we know what he brings to the table. He's putting that 3-fight win streak on the line. Let's get into our boy Muradov a little bit, right? So he's 2-0 in the UFC, 24-6 overall. Talk about my boy Kevin Holland willing to take any fight. You know what I'm saying? Like, this is a tough fight, but he's down to test it because this guy's a good striker. He's going to be good at keeping the distance. He's what I would say stays on that bike. You know what I mean? But he's constantly moving. He's constantly trying to stay out of the way.
His motor's going.
And the one thing that I'm going to put on Kevin Holland as a fighter is he's going to watch tape, and I do believe he's going to notice how this man constantly throws an overhand right. If Kevin Holland gets caught by that overhand right, I'm telling you right now, I've overrated him overall. No, I'm overrating him. Okay. Because that's how telegraphed that shot was in the fights that I've watched of him. I mean, against Trevor Smith, it was very similar. I think you saw very similarly how he just kept going for it, just kept over, and he finally got it, and it's beautiful. Like, it's a beautiful knockout, without question. But unfortunately, it's kind of like a gun. You got one bullet. At the end of the day, it's not like it's going to pull out 6 different weapons and just go. You got to avoid that.
So if it does catch him by surprise, then there's something wrong there for sure.
And I'm still going to give Muradov the edge in odds here. I'm going to say he's probably a minus 150 to a minus 210, minus 220, just based on the record, based on the short notice fight. I just think you can give him the edge there.
To be honest, I mean, it seems like Vegas is actually siding with the public play here, which will probably end up being Kevin Holland because, he's a minus 165 in this bout, which is actually a little bit surprising given that we just said he took this fight, a week ago? So, I mean, it looks like there's good value on Mahmoud. What are your kind of feeling after seeing that, the favorite is actually Kevin Holland?
Well, I didn't think the odds were going to be separated that much, and I guess they think the same way with me as, the short notice fight seems to be not so much. And I think as a distance fighter, I think Kevin Holland's a lot better at it. I think he's going to be able to bring a bit more of the technical aspect. By what I've seen, I think there's going to be a bit more for him to throw at him. I think he's going to be able to read the fight a lot better. And, it'd be interesting to see how his cardio holds up in rounds 2 or 3. But I'm very, very firm to the belief that he's been training pretty much all year round.
Throughout, yeah, for sure. So stay tuned for that one. Doesn't look like we're leaning either way.
Probably my favorite fight on the card.
Oh, wow. High praise. So up next, before we jump into the main event, we have another bout here between, we always touch on people's nicknames and how fitting they normally are. Even this card, we got Zombie Girl. She actually fights like a zombie. On initial instinct, I look at, Bryce Mitchell here, and he looks like a pretty boy. And then I look at his nickname, and he's Thug Nasty. Not what I would have expected whatsoever. So he's fighting Andre Fili. So I know you got a lot to talk about Fili here. So kind of jump right into it, man.
Yeah, so the thing I want to talk about Fili is, despite being 30 years old, it's like 8-6 in the UFC. Like, that's a big deal. You know, the guy's 21-7. He's been fighting for a long time. One of Uriah Faber's first little, pupils. We saw him as well, get kind of famous on that tough with Conor McGregor. Second fight against Max Holloway, lost by submission. He's seen a lot of good fighters. Our boy, he beat our boy Charles Jourdain, Monsieur Canadien, Monsieur Canadien, Monsieur Charles Jourdain. We've seen him kind of a little short, right? We've seen him lose a split decision to Andre Fili. We've seen him we've seen him draw in that last fight that saved us again. So little things like that, right? Poor Charles Jourdain, but let's get back to it. Andre Fili won that split decision against him. He looked like a good striker. The cardio was there. I just think, when you look at, Bryce Mitchell's improvement in his last fight, dude, this guy was not breathing hard at the end of 3 rounds, and he was dominating.
Wow.
Yeah, Charles Rosa was all over the mat. Could not really muster up much offense. Bryce Mitchell was one of my favorite fighters on Tough 27. I think he might have been my favorite fighter if I could think back. He's just a really good kid, 4-0 in the UFC. Again, let's think back, right? If there was anyone I could see maybe wanting to win a championship based on what I see, at least for face value, he's the kind of kid I want to see really succeed. And if he was a champion, he'd be a good champion for the UFC. He'd be the kind of guy you want representing the sport is what I'm trying to say. So, I mean,
has no blemish on his record yet. So
yeah, I really want to lean towards him being the favorite, only because I think he could take a beating in the first couple of rounds. And this guy over the last half of the second and third rounds can prove to be an absolute menace. So unless you get him out of there in the first, I just can see this, Bryce Mitchell by points, Bryce Mitchell, potential finish in the third round, that kind of thing. So I'm still going to think he's the favorite at even a -170 to a -230.
Wow. Ding, 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 ding. We got Thug Nasty here at -165. So,
wow.
Right on cue there with what you're thinking.
Yes, I do believe he has a really good chance in that fight. Andre Fili's a big win for him as well. So if that's your next, 14-0 type of record, we're going to see this guy potentially headline a card, and, all the power to him. I'm a big fan, and I really hope that he succeeds. And I hope you enjoy what you see, too, come fight night.
Yeah, I hope so, too. And, I mean, it sounds like we're going to see some value in this right now, because once he moves at 14-0-0, everybody will know his name. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
So let's capitalize on those slight odds on Mr. Thug Nasty now.
And I think, I mentioned my biasness in the last fight, right? Saying that was going to be my favorite fight with Kevin Holland. This has all the makings of the best fight on the card. If Andre Fili can wrestle him, both of them don't really have the best takedown defense, but Andre Fili's is actually better. So the way I see it is, this could go both ways. Maybe Andre Fili wants to tire him out a little bit. I think that's not the best idea, because he's going to want to strike. But the way you want to kind of approach this is avoid kind of playing to Bryce Mitchell's strengths, and that very much is, letting him be on top, letting him kind of tire you out with him on your back, things like that. But maybe if you can get on top and avoid some submissions, maybe you can tire him out a little bit. Maybe you can at least put him in some bad spots. You're a wrestler. You've been in that camp with Uriah Faber your whole life for the most part. So I think it's a good matchup. And I'm just trying to see if the elite cardio master grappler is going to really succeed against the technical striker that might not have what it takes towards the end of the fight.
Yeah, you got me excited for that one, for sure.
It's going to be fun. That one's going to be fun.
And that leads us up into what I am looking forward to the most. We don't even need to talk much about the Spider. Everybody knows who Anderson Silva is, what he's about, the glorified career he has. And I honestly don't know a ton about Uriah Hall, so kind of give me some information about this.
Yeah, so what's funny? It's like about Uriah Hall, but you don't know about Uriah Hall. So he was actually part of the tough season with Kelvin Gastelum. So Kelvin Gastelum actually competed on a middleweight tough season. And so Uriah Hall actually fought in the final of that tough and lost to Kelvin Gastelum. So
really?
We're actually seeing a guy who had potentially one of the highest rises of that era. That tough turned pro, even getting into the final. He was really, really popular. And I sent you one more clip that I wanted you to watch of him.
Oh, dope. Let me pull it up now.
Yeah, so take a look at that. And
this is from Tough, right?
Yes, it is. It's from Tough.
Yeah.
And so that fight was quite the let's say stamp of approval of him being Mr. Hype Train in the UFC. So the way I want to kind of finish that,
Yo, that was unreal.
Yeah, potential knockout of the year, like all that kind of stuff. And that's not even
with
the worst
5 seconds to go. Oh man, you see Dana just going nuts.
Yeah, he actually, you can see towards the end of that clip where he actually looks a bit more scared too. Like he wants to make sure that other fighter is okay. But there's 2 in that season where it just blows your mind. It was incredible. One of the fastest rises in terms of that level of striking that we'd seen in a long time. Anderson Silva level. And so all of a sudden, here we are with that fight, Anderson Silva's retirement fight, against that guy that we kind of keep talking about here and there, kind of like his career. It's back and forth, back and forth. And so, lucky him, right? Lucky him, he gets to be Anderson Silva's retirement fight. And, if he gets that win, you might get him into a place.
He's on the map. Yeah, he's on the map.
And so let's take a look at Silva. Poor guy, a couple leg injuries in his fights, Chris Weidman, even Jared Cannonier.
Oh, that one, I still get the visual of that. It makes me sick.
Mm-hmm. And, he got injured against Jared Cannonier too, which was his last fight in May of 2019. So
okay.
I'm hoping he's bringing at least, that as elite as you can be, Silva, to the table, because I think Uriah Hall is gonna take this fight seriously. I think it's one of the biggest fights he's ever been a part of. He's going to be able to headline a card. It's going to give him an opportunity to at least reset his career, and a lot of people right now are taking advantage of that. And he'd be dumb not to. Let's be honest, he'd be pretty stupid not to take advantage of that opportunity. Yeah. And so if I'm him, I am going balls to the wall training. I am making sure that I, as much as I want to, throw him a bone and just take a dive and make it a win for Anderson Silva in his final fight, I just can't help but feel that is the fight for me to win, to kind of make my career stand out.
Yeah, put my stamp on the UFC for sure. Mm-hmm. And so in terms of odds perspective, do you think this will be kind of close? Are you open, to get some value here?
I actually think it'd be very close. I think it's the closest thing to a pick'em on this entire card. I really don't even have a number, but I'll say, closest thing to a pick'em.
So actually, Anderson Silva is getting no respect, and it maybe lines up with the fact that, like you said, it's a retirement fight type thing. Mm-hmm. It's more about that. He's a plus 180 underdog, giving minus 220 to Uriah Hall here.
You know what? If I had a max min, I can respect that call based on those exact reasons you just mentioned. Because let's think about it here. Anderson Silva, let's not go too detailed into what era he was a part of. But, guys are getting a bit more healthier. Guys are getting a bit more athletic. So even in terms of, let's take a look at his fight with Bisping. He did look very skillful in that fight, but Bisping was very good in that fight. Basically a blind guy just doing his thing. And now we go to Israel Adesanya. We've seen now Anderson fight Israel Adesanya and come out looking pretty good. Let's compare his fight to Paulo Costa. I mean, Anderson Silva looked better than him. If you ask me.
As well, people don't understand this. Like, and they said, fucking casuals. They said, I like it. And a lot of experts as well have casual brains because they're like, Israel has no knockout power because he hit Henderson Silva in the face clean. I'm like, you don't understand this. Anderson is playing a game where me and him are playing this game. So when I hit him, I didn't hit him clean. I'm not trying to hit him where he is. I'm trying to hit him where he's going to be. But then he knows that as well. So he'd anticipate that and then pause. The distance is just right, so it just nicks him. There's a time I kicked him in the face and I slowed it down on my Instagram. Just went and just like my toe, literally. You see my toes? They're ugly as fuck. Like it just nicked the top lip, and I went, "Here's gloves," because I felt it. I felt my toe nick, and he goes, and we're playing this game, but like literally, I was trying to hit him where he's gonna be, but then he'd pause, and then the punch would just. So it looked cool. It looked like, but I was like, I didn't hit him clean.
Right.
We're playing this game, and people don't understand. People who've never fought, they don't understand that game you're playing. Yeah, it was beautiful, man. I love that fight. And people
love that fight too.
It was boring. I was like, fuck, that was iconic, man. I wish he had left after that fight, man, because I wanted to be the one.
The people are silly.
I think I'm leaning Anderson Silva here. I'll take him with that plus 180.
Oh, that's music to my ears.
Yeah, I mean, Uriah Hall is kind of he's a bit of a choke artist. He really is. And I'm giving him a lot of props and saying, like, everything's going to be different. Now, what do we know about Anderson Silva? He's been in the fights. I don't care what he needed to get to it. In every shape or form, he is the best striker the UFC has ever seen. Uriah Hall has some of the best knockouts we've ever seen. So this could be insane. At the same time, Anderson Silva needs to be smart. If Anderson Silva can be smart, stay the hell away from that cage and keep his goddamn hands up, we could see him at least try and walk away with what could be even a knockout or a submission win. Like, I would love to sprinkle that finish just for the fun of it. Let's see how the rest of this card goes, and maybe some live lines of some finishes and things like that could definitely get played. But no, let's see it. I'm actually very excited about the fight even more based on the lines, because watching Anderson Silva win now as a plus 180 underdog is going to be even better if it happens.
Oh, it'll taste so much better.
Way better. And deservingly, watching Uriah Hall beat a 40-plus-year-old Anderson Silva at minus 220 is also good. Because if he came in as an underdog and won it, I just don't think it deserved that level of respect. Because you didn't beat him in his prime. You know what I mean?
And that's the purpose of this fight for Uriah Hall, right? Put
exactly.
that UFC stamp on the name. So good luck to you, my boy Silva. We're hoping that you can kind of come through here.
We're all cheering for you, baby boy.
Really excited. Yeah, we're all really excited for that fight.
It's a fight. It's a fight.
The last three fights look amazing. So really pumped about that one. And take us away, Suraj.
I mean, like Ynez Silva says, it's a fight. It's a fight. You know, we're gonna have a great time come Saturday. It's gonna be, I think an underrated card. I think, like you said, the last three fights are where it's at. But again, those prelims look really juicy to me. I think there's a lot of guys on there that deserve a bit more respect. I think we're going to be able to see some good line movement heading into the weigh-ins, heading into face-offs, and heading into the cards. So we're probably going to have to act a little bit quicker, I think, because that's probably going to shift things probably not in our favor.
Yeah, absolutely. So stay tuned. As soon as we lock things in, they'll be up on the Instagram. They'll be up on Twitter. Stay tuned for our picks. Subscribe below. All our information is below. Suraj, always a pleasure, man.
Take care, my man. Have a good evening. Everyone, take care. Peace. Let's get it. Enjoy the fight.
Later, guys.